The father of the 14-year-old student accused of opening fire, killing two classmates and two teachers, says his son was bullied, tormented, and called gay by his classmates. The comments were made during a police interrogation of Colin Gray last year after the FBI alleged his then 13-year-old son Colt was behind online posts threatening a school shooting. A transcript of that police interrogation was obtained by Fox News. Colin Gray telling law enforcement, quote, "Colt's gone through a lot. It just was very difficult for him to go to school and not get picked on by, it went from one thing to another to, he was talking to the couple friends that he has." The father discussing bullying, telling law enforcement Colt was, quote, ridiculed, quote, "I was trying to get him on the golf team, like, quote, oh, look, Colt's gay. He's dating that guy," just ridiculed him day after day after day. Colt and Colin Gray both face charges in connection with Wednesday's shooting at Appalachian High School in Winder, Georgia, that killed 4 people and wounded 9 others. The teen is charged with murder, and his father is accused of second-degree murder for providing his son with a semi-automatic AR-15 style rifle that was used in the shooting. Arrest warrants say the elder Gray did so knowing his son, quote, was a threat to himself and others.
But you know what? I don't know why we're surprised, right? Like, you guys, this has been very consistent for years and years, all the way back since Columbine, that kids who are getting bullied, their first objective after being unable to process being criticized or insulted or bullied, they decide that they're going to use a permanent method to address a temporary problem. We see this all too often in the US, you guys, and it's a shame, but before we even get into all this, just kind of like my thoughts on the shooting, like where we go from here, what's the reality? What are people saying online? What are the solutions, you guys? First, please make sure you send your prayers out to the family of the victims, also the students and the teachers, just the community out here in Georgia who had to really experience such a tragic situation. Now, not even 2 days after this incident, we had another shooting where a student was shot and killed in a bathroom, okay, during an argument with another student. You guys, I don't think you are aware of how many mass shootings we have, as well as school shootings just in general. It's an epidemic in this country, and it's out of control, right? Before we get into all that, let me just say this. Welcome back to the channel. This is The Real Nathan Daily. For those who are new, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. I've been on a hiatus, and it's good to be back. And then, of course, it's not good to be back. There's always so much drama and negativity and just acts of wickedness going on in this country, just around the world. And we're here to cover it, give you my opinion, my thoughts, my expertise as a former law enforcement officer. So anyways, what is going on with this Colt Gray situation? You guys already know the father's been arrested, rightfully so. We need more parents held accountable when they make such gross decisions by giving a child a weapon, and not just any weapon, a rifle, right? Especially after being warned by the FBI. A lot of people are kind of still up in the air about that, but I'll explain that as well. Here's the reality of the situation. He did all this because he was bullied, right? At least that's his quote unquote justification. A lot of people saying, this is this new trans wave, and he's a trans extremist, and there's all these, the last couple mass shootings have been from trans extremists, and that's false. Okay, so that's false. But what I will say is it doesn't take away from the idea that there are groups, extremist groups online, and they kind of link up and they share their issues and their personal problems with their online community, and they motivate each other to do acts of violence, right? Acts of terror on their community, on schools. And this is actually very, very disturbing for a lot of different reasons, you guys, because ultimately this clown decided to take lives because he was bullied, right? And we see this all too often in this country, where people try to find permanent methods to deal with temporary problems. I don't know where the disconnect is. The psychopathy of these kids today are just, it's beyond my understanding. But I know where this is stemming from, right? A lot of these kids are growing up in this country where it's everything around is saturated with violence, right? Our country as a whole is really on a downward spiral. The moral decay is out of control, right? Like we're a godless society at this point, and the kids are growing up in broken homes, and there is so much confusion, so much division, intentional division. There's so much misleading information. The media can't be trusted. There's disinformation, misinformation all around us, propaganda. These kids are growing crazy. All right, not even talk about the food that they're eating, right? It's madness, you guys. It's madness. And of course, what do you expect to happen? A lot of people are saying, oh, it's this wokeness, it's the politicians, it's this, it's that, it's parenting. I say it's a little bit of everything. What have I been hearing online? Again, that he's a part of this extremist group. He brings out his manifesto about, hey, he's LGBT, he's gay, he's been teased for having a boyfriend and so forth and so on. Now, here's my thing. Back when I was growing up, I got teased all the time, you guys. You talked your trash back, right? You get back at them, throw them the insults. And if you couldn't handle it, guess what happened? You threw hands. You threw hands. These kids are pulling triggers when they get offended. Ultimately, this all boils down to, I got my feelings hurt, so now I'm going to go take a gun and I'm going to exercise my feelings through this finger right here. How he was able to pull this off from the simple fact that he was already in the classroom, then he gets up, he gets out, then he goes and gets the gun, and then he comes back in. That's a problem within itself, right? There's an issue with our country where we don't like to invest in the safety and security and well-being of our own citizens, right? We've already been down this road before multiple times. There's no justification for why these schools aren't properly secured. There just isn't, right? These parents are nonsensical in their thinking where they're, oh, I don't want the school to feel like a prison. Well, now the schools are feeling like a morgue, right? At this point, it's one of those things where we have to embrace the new reality. It is what it is. The United States is a first world country with third world problems. And the more we try to pretend like that's not the case, the more we're going to have to explain why these kids are being literally eliminated in places where they're supposed to be focused on their education. It blows my mind. I don't understand the logic. And one of the comments that one of the parents said in this incident was that it's just such a peaceful place. No one would ever thought. We would have never thought. You'd be surprised what goes on in these schools, what these kids are doing, the double lives that these kids live. The parents are freaking oblivious. I've arrested plenty of kids and I have to explain to the parents, hey, that was your child. Not my Johnny, not my Susan, not my Quintavious, not my Tyrone, right? Not my Jose, not my Hector, okay? Yes, your little Jesus is a criminal. Yes, all of that, ma'am. And the parents are in denial. They don't know their children, right? People are like, how could you give your son this rifle, right? He's a kid. How could you give him? This is the thing. It's a popular thing here in this country where we just give kids guns and we teach them how to shoot and so forth and so on. And you don't even know the mental stability of your own child. Now, here's the problem. He takes this gun and then he goes and he does this act of violence. You see the boy, Colt, this young man, he looks like little Chucky, right? He looks like little Chucky. And The father, what an imbecile. What an imbecile. The father's being charged. We already know that, rightfully so. It's about time parents start suffering the consequences of their inability to raise children. I'm sorry, it just is what it is. It is what it is. That needs to be a known correlation. If, hey son, hey daughter, if you come out here and mess up, it's on me as well. All right. So there's this accountability between parents and children. He comes from a broken home. Okay. Boo hoo, cry me a damn river. A lot of us have. Okay. And a lot of us aren't trying to solve our problems by taking the lives of others. All right. This is one of those situations where it's like, hey, oh, your kid comes home. Oh, they're making fun of me. Mom, dad, they're calling me names and they're calling me this, calling me that. You know, back in the day, your father would be like, son, grow some balls, right? Grow up. Take it on the chin. Okay, well, call them names back. Walk away. Learn to accept who you are. If you can't handle it, fight it out. Give them a two-piece combo. If you get beat up, it's okay. Stand up, walk again. Let it go. You know, nowadays, you can't even tell kids to grow balls. A lot of them want to cut them off. Right? This is the new era that we're in. We're in the soft child era. These kids can't handle constructive criticism. They can't handle insults. They're unprepared for life. Okay? So they come out here and they can't handle authority. They're quitting jobs. Why'd you quit? I had to talk to this young girl one day. She pulled up next to the police car and she was asking for legal advice. And she said, yeah, my job told me to go home and said, if I don't correct this problem, I'm going to get fired. I was like, well, what's the problem? She takes her hat off. Her hair is purple and blue. And they said it violated her uniform code. And they said, you need to either cover it up or have natural hair color. And she said, I'm not going to do either or. And they said, okay, well, you need to leave. And she's like, well, I'm not coming back. And it's like, well, you're fired. And now she's mad, right? She's like, well, I'm going to just go. I said, see, this is the problem with these kids, these young adults. You know, you can't tell them nothing, right? They can't handle authority. They can't handle criticism. They're weak. They're weak and hypersensitive. And anytime they get their feelings hurt, they want to kill somebody. Literally. So, you know, don't let me get into the spiritual side of these things, right? A lot of these kids are walking around with little demons in them. All right, let's just be real. Okay, let's be real. But fast forward off of that. You know, this isn't a joking matter, but honestly, we're trying to make a little light of this situation simply because it is such a real problem. We're going to go into some data as well in reference to mass shootings and school shootings because there's a difference. You know, I've heard a lot of people also talk about, you know, the FBI dropped the ball. No, the FBI didn't, you guys. They did their investigation and they passed on that information to the sheriffs. Their job is to do and monitor and do what they need to do. There was no evidence. There wasn't enough, according to them, to make an arrest. But even if they did make an arrest, what's the problem, you guys? There's no intervention to a made-up mind. You can't do nothing about it, right? If he's committed to carry this act out, he would have went to jail for maybe 3 days and got out and did the exact same thing. Whether his parents, his dad gave him a gun, he could have got a gun somewhere else. You guys, these kids are resourceful. All right, there's a lot of stolen guns flowing through the streets out here. It's easy to get a gun. Absolutely easy. I'm telling you, it's easy, right? That's why gun laws, the way politicians are expressing and what they're talking about needs to change. It doesn't work, right? It doesn't work because it's not practical. You're not going to prevent people from getting something that they want, especially guns in this country. There's overabundance of guns. So in this situation, Colt made his mind up that he was going to do what he intended on doing. I've had plenty of cases where, especially you see this a lot with domestic cases, gang-related cases, where you arrest these gang members because they're getting ready to do something they have no business doing. Well, guess what? As soon as they get out, it's back to business, right? Jail is just a timeout. Prison is an extended timeout. If you don't correct your thinking, you're gonna come out here and you're gonna carry on as business as usual. A lot of times in domestics, and I had my last domestic case that I'm still dealing with to this day, investigating or through courts. I had a case where a gentleman was threatening his ex, and they got into it. I showed up. He tried to get away. He was armed. Long story short, he got arrested. He didn't get shot, okay, because he gave the gun up smooth, okay. He did what he was supposed to do. He goes to jail for the terroristic threats and the physical abuse and assault on his ex in front of the baby. I charged him with everything I could charge him with. I did my part. He comes out a few months later, and I remember getting a call from another jurisdiction. I think it was maybe 4 months later. He shot and killed the ex, okay? And he shot at the police officers. And guess what? Black guy, he lived. Who would have thought? He shot an officer, right? And he didn't get away. They were still able to detain him without killing him. Contrary to a lot of people's belief, right? This idea that you black people can't shoot the police or black people can't shoot anybody and get away with it. They do it all the time. I promise you that. And that brings up this next problem, right? A lot of my color justice warriors, the ones who always have to bring race into this situation. My community, black folks, we love to turn everything into race. And even in this situation here, for some reason, we focus so much on how the incident ended. Instead of just acknowledging how tragic the situation is, the lives that were lost, the lives that were impacted. You have a lot of people online who are like, why is he still alive? If he was black, he would have been killed. The police would have killed him. And honestly, that's false. Listen, we as a community, we have to stop allowing the media to be our first line of education, right? We have to stop allowing people who are regurgitating a lot of misinformation. I'll say this, my biggest problem with a lot of us is the willfully ignorant, right? It's one thing when you don't know. It's one thing that when facts and evidence are brought to you, you still are just stuck on stupid, right? And it's hard to navigate through that. What is the truth, you guys? So we're gonna just dive into it real quick and we'll get into the data, right? The reality is there are plenty, I mean plenty, of black men and women who have engaged with law enforcement, who've conducted in mass shootings in the public and have lived to tell about it. Why? Because they cooperated. Why? Because they're asked to put the gun down and submit, and they did to law enforcement. Therefore, they weren't killed, right? In this situation with Colt Gray, the officers, the SRO engaged, made contact with him, ordered him to drop the gun. He dropped it. He gave it up smooth, right? And in most cases, when we look at the data, these guys commit suicide, or the police actually take them out, or they cooperate. All right. So there's this big misconception. And again, so we're going to go ahead and probably just really dive into the data, right? Let's look at the mass shootings in the United States for those who aren't really familiar with the data. And then let's also take a look at school shootings. How are they defined? Well, the feds define mass shootings as an event where an individual or individuals begin to indiscriminately take the lives of either, I think it's 4 or more people, is considered a mass shooting with the use of a firearm. Doesn't matter, handgun or rifle, doesn't matter. That is a mass shooting. Again, there's arguments that, well, all the mass shooters are white and there are no mass shooters that are black. That's also false, right? There are black mass shooters. There are black school shooters. The media, obviously, again, just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, right? And unfortunately, if you don't take the time to do your own due diligence, you're going to walk around here thinking that whatever the media tells you is actually true. And I get the frustration. I get all that. But you guys, the facts don't care about your feelings. So anyways, let's go ahead and dive into some of this data. All right. But let's take a look at this. Number of mass shootings in the United States since 1966 to 2022. So this is going to be a little outdated because, and I'll get one a little more accurate. But the reason why I like this one is because of this right here. Hold on. So 441, right, as of 2022, mass shootings in the United States. 1,500 deaths, 3,900 victims, both injured and killed. 95.7% of the perpetrators are male. We already knew that, right? This is not a surprise to anybody. Okay, so 95% are men or males. Let's say males because a lot of them are kids. 30 or 29% of the mass shootings took place in a workplace. All right, that's another thing. I'm gonna break down more detail of this. 24% inside schools. That's a lot. That says a lot. Okay, 24% are in schools. The average age of the mass shooter, 33 years old. And check this out. This is what I wanted to show you. 75% of mass shootings are conducted with handguns. So when you hear these Democrats talking about we need to get rid of rifles, ban the rifles, it's the handguns, right? Essentially, it's guns. Period. It doesn't really matter. It's guns. Period. I understand why they say rifles, not as relevant as handguns. Meaning what? Bags need to be checked. Students need to be checked. It's quite obvious when you see them walking in with the rifle, unless it's broken down and they have to put it back together. But reason why these things need to be checked: 54% of the perpetrators are white. So we're gonna dive deeper into that. But before we get into that, let me explain this thing with what needs to happen. Let's talk about that solution real quick. Schools at this point, right? They've been doing the training, which is good. The training in this incident, I heard, was very superb. The students followed to a T. They hunkered down. They followed what the procedures were. And I think a lot of that, following those instructions, saved a lot of lives, right? We know that to be true. They had controlled access doors in the classrooms. That helped a lot. We know that to be true. There needs to be controlled access on the perimeter of the school as well. There needs to be metal detectors. There needs to be scanning devices to scan for guns. And also, SRO needs to be strategically placed at the entrances and exits of these schools to where they can properly monitor and also be able to acknowledge if a potential threat is coming and entering the school so they can respond. They need to be the first point of contact. Because when students see that, guess what? They're already discouraged in actually carrying out something like that when they know they're going to be met with an adversary, right? So that's important. Put them to work. That's what they're there for, right? That's what they're there for. It should always be a point of contact, law enforcement, at entrance ways and exits ways and things like that, to the best of their ability, right? So let's get back into the data. I know a lot of parents aren't feeling the idea of having police in schools and so forth and so on, but I always say you need to get a grip on the new reality. So mass shooting demographics, this one is interesting. Mass shooting demographics, ages range from 11 to 70 with a mean age of 34, which is what we saw earlier. Those shootings were 52.3% white and 20.9% black, 8% Latino, 6% Asian, 4.2% Middle Eastern, 1.8% Native American. Now, a lot of times when we do these, we talk about these, no one ever cares about the other groups, right? They just want to know the comparison between white and black, right? Our country has gotten so fixated and addicted with race and skin color that we only care about the compare and contrast between white and blacks. You hear it all the time. A lot of the comments, oh, if it was a black person, you guys, black people commit mass shootings. I would also even argue that there are more mass shootings committed in our communities that go underreported, right? And again, a lot of times people say, oh, well, we don't go in and shoot up schools like white kids do. And it's like, and in my experience, what I've seen, we shoot up outside the school, and you got more white kids shooting up in the school, as if it matters, right? Again, as if it matters. I don't understand this fixation. And again, it's divisive, it's ignorant. The reality is you have kids who are taking guns to school and they're taking lives, period. It doesn't matter whether you're doing it in math class or you're doing it in the school parking lot, right? It's irrelevant. It's just irrelevant. And at the same time, we can then start, we do mass shootings at funerals. I've seen it happen. We do mass shootings at football games. I've seen it happen. We do mass shootings at gatherings. I've seen it happen. Hell, just recently we had a mass shooting at a graduation event in the black community, right? These are all mass shootings that we do. Parties, clubs. So again, it doesn't matter. The issue is the acts of violence is the issue, right? And so many people are so concerned about the location as if it matters, right? A life is a life. Let's get back into this. It's irritating. Locations of mass shooting. This is also a good one. Workplace again, 30%. Retail, 16%. Bars, 13%. Residential, 8%. Outdoors, 8%. K through 12, 7.6%. Place of worship, 6.8%. College, university, 5.2%. Government, place, and civic importance, 3.5%. So very interesting data. And this is, again, I'll link this again for you guys to look through. Just want to kind of go through this real quick. The Washington Post has been keeping up with data and shootings a lot lately. They have a very good comprehensive data set here. This is they're showing 417 schools since Columbine. This specifically is, this article is more than 383,000 students have experienced gun violence at school since Columbine. So this is a very great article to kind of go through, you guys, if you want to become more familiar. They have 84 pages for you to comb through. They have the most recent shooting, right? Again, here's Appalachia High School that we're talking about now. But just 2 days later, you guys, just 2 days after that incident, there was another shooting in a school. And this one, since we're talking about skin color, September 6th, Japatone High School. This was a black student who shot another student inside a bathroom during an argument. And it says injured here because he was taken to the hospital, but he later died of his injuries. And the student was a suspect, 16, and the victim was 15 years old. Another gun entered into a school. You guys, the fact that this is still happening in 2024 is breathtaking. So again, you can just scroll through here and see a lot of these. Parkland High School, Dunbar High School, Washington, D.C., and the list goes on and on. And this is a comprehensive map. Very, very interesting. Just kind of look at where in the U.S. a lot of these shootings are taking place. It's quite heavy on the East Coast, okay? Quite heavy on the East Coast, as you can see. And this is very good. You can just highlight. It gives you kind of like a brief overview of it. And this right here is interesting. So if we start walking back, or let's look at 2014, there were 47 school shootings. And roughly kind of like around this, maybe the same amount, all the way up into 2017. And 2018, 119. I honestly don't know what flipped the switch, but then here we go. And it was kind of hovering around the same amount for the next 3 years. And then 2021, Jesus, 256. 2022, 308. 2023, 349. I don't know why there were so many school shootings, right? And then here we are, 2024. We haven't closed the year out yet. So who knows what this number look like. Prayerfully, it'll be a lot lower, right? So just to kind of give you an overview of how many of these shootings are happening in schools. And this isn't just, it's mass shootings and shootings in general, right? This is a combination of all of that mixed together. So, yeah, this is just some more data to kind of look through. This is deaths from school shootings. If we look at the top here, this is 2022, 72 deaths in 2022, 23, 57, and so far 46, 2024. So, it's sad. It really is sad. It really is sad. This is kind of what it's looking like here. Next, I quickly want to look into the idea that people often say that the police never neutralize these threats, right? Oftentimes the media is always showing a white suspect who's conducting a mass shooting, and he's white, they let him live, they fed him McDonald's, they took care of him, they bathed him, they gave him new clothes, and then they released him. False, 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 okay? You hear one incident in the news and you think it applies to everything. So let's look at the data. Again, let's go back and look at actually how these things have been resolved over the years, okay? Who stops a bad guy with a gun? All right, so this is a great article. I'm going to link it as well. 433 active shootings. How did they end? Let's look at it. This article is written June 2022, so it's going to be a little outdated, but it's going to be accurate enough for us to kind of get an understanding. So out of 249 attacks ended before the police arrived. In 185, the attacker left the scene, okay? He left the scene 113 times. So that's the data there. Down here, he died by suicide 72 times, all right? Here, in 64 of these incidents, a bystander subdued the attacker 42 times. Then the bystander shot the attacker 22 times. So subdued, maybe talked him down. Hey man, give it up. Hey, maybe tackled him. But in these right here, 22 times they were shot. Okay, so this is the breakdown. 249 times ended before the police arrived. Now let's look what happened after the police arrived. So I love how this branch, it breaks it down. I'm gonna add this article. This is a great article. So 184 attacks ended after the police arrived. In 131 of those encounters, the police shot the attacker. How many times? 98 of them were shot. Okay, 98 of them were shot. And I'm assuming killed, okay? Then 33 of those encounters, the officers were able to subdue them. So for example, in this case right here, and this shooting incident that we're talking about, this would count as an officer being able to subdue the attacker. Hey, put the gun down or you'll be eliminated. Okay, here you go, put the gun down. Okay, 33 times. What the news doesn't tell you is that the majority of the time the police are neutralizing the threat. You guys, neutralizing the threat. So this is what I'm saying, like there's such a gross misconception as to how these things get handled. We hear about one incident and then we think it applies for them all. In 53 of the encounters when the police show up, guess what? The suspect does what? Commits suicide. All right, commits suicide 38 times. And then there's another branch here, they surrendered. Overall, that's kind of the data as it relates to how these things end. For those who are curious, those who believe that the police are out here giving cupcakes to mass shooters, it's just not true, okay? It's not true. The vast majority of them are executed or they take their own life, they commit suicide, all right? So please, you guys, for those who are misinformed, please share this. Right, to share this information. That's why we do these things. That's why I have these conversations. I invite people on to have these discussions, and we talk about the facts. We talk about the facts because again, a lot of people are so misled intentionally. And let's get into the fun stuff now, right? Let's talk about Black folks. Let's talk about our folks and what is going on. You guys remember this guy? Does he look familiar? Please tell me he looks familiar. Do you remember this kid in Texas? This was recently. He took a gun to school because what? He was being bullied. All right. Remember, he was being bullied. and he shot up a bunch of folks. I think a teacher got shot. He was just shooting pop, 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 all in the classroom. Okay, I think 4 or 5 people got shot. And then he runs away. And then his parents were like, "Oh, he's a good kid." I think he was living with his grandma or his auntie. Remember? And it was a big deal. And people were mad. A lot of white folks were mad too, because it's like, hold on, y'all not even plastering this on mainstream media like you would. And this is a mass shooting. It was a mass shooting that was underreported. Why? Because he was black. He was black, you guys. It didn't fit the narrative. And nobody wanted to talk about it. And his family gave the same excuse as Colt Gray's family is giving. The same exact excuse, you guys. What are they saying? He's a good kid. They were bullying him. What we find out about this kid, he was a damn drug dealer. He was a drug dealer at school, but he was a punk. Right? And they're bullying him, apparently. Maybe. I don't even know. But Twitter, they're dropping all the tea on Twitter. But I'll never forget this case. It was so funny because they were trying not to give it any publicity at all. No one cared that a black kid shot up a bunch of black kids at school. A teacher got hit too. It was bad. It was bad. So again, it just goes back to the hypocrisy in our media and how misleading it can be to the uneducated mind. Next. Oh, and he was arrested and he's still alive, right? Check this guy out. Birmingham police identify suspect arrested charged in Huffman High School shooting. Another one. All right. He made it out alive. Next. One of 4 suspects arrested in deadly May 31st high school graduation shooting. This guy doesn't look like he's wrapped too tight. Okay. Another one. Next. Additional juvenile suspect arrested in connection to Hammond High graduation shooting. Jesus Christ. That injured 4 last month. You guys, this is a mass shooting. This is a mass shooting. Okay, if you shoot, 4 more according to the FBI, that's mass shooting. I didn't even hear about this. No one heard about this. It's not on the news. Right? They kept this real local. Why? It doesn't fit the media narrative. Next. What we got here? Victim in double shooting at McEachern High School parking. So arrested, charged, cop, police say. What did I tell you guys? Black folks love shooting outside the school. On school grounds, but outside. And a lot of times too, black folks, you got issues with 5, they're going to shoot the 5, right? So I will say that there's not a lot of indiscriminate shooting, very target based. But again, here we go. Shooting in the parking lot. School grounds, lived to tell about it. The police arrested him, no problem. McGruder High School shooter charged as an adult. McGruder High School. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. He looks like Sideshow Bob. Another one. Another school shooter. Black. Jesus. 2 men arrested in connection to North Garden Senior High School shooting. Jeez. Another one. School shooters. It's traumatic looking at the impact of Yes Prep Southwest school shooting on student administrators. What? Oh, okay, I remember this. The guy ran into the school and started lighting up the administrators. Okay, another one. Arrested. Alive, you guys. Man wanted after being accused of shooting at Port Allen football game. We got a face? No face. But he's black. Teen accused of attempted shooting on school bus. Baby K held without bond. I remember this case. You guys remember? This was recently. This was 2023. This was just last year. You remember this? The kid, him and another kid got on the school bus and they were trying to light a kid up on the bus. But the gun jammed. Could you imagine getting on the school bus? How old is he? 15. He's 15 years old. Look at him in the picture with the pistol. 15 years old, trying to snuff a life out on a school bus. He gets on the school bus and chases the kid down and points the pistol at him and pulls the trigger a couple times. The gun doesn't go off. Whew. Number God right there. They still charged him. Rightfully so. Bowie High School shooting victim, suspect identified, gun not yet recovered. Do we have a face? Another one. My DJ Khaled boys. Jeez, look at this guy. Teen arrested in shooting death at North Las Vegas school. Guys, listen, we can go on and on. I'm not going to bore you to death with all the details. I think we know what the reality is. All right, this isn't a competition. This isn't a competition. And again, I assure you, there are plenty of black men who have participated in acts of violence and have made encounters with the police and lived to tell about it. Please stop pushing false narratives. Please stop pushing propaganda, you guys. It's just not true. All right, this is not a competition of who does more violence in schools. And to be quite honest, we really want to kind of compare numbers and really examine who's out here pulling triggers, you guys, and taking lives. It's going to be our community. I think we probably beat them out of any mass shooting any day. Okay, so this is really not even the type of argument or discussion we really want to be participating in, because the amount of violence that's committed from our community is absolutely atrocious. It's absolutely embarrassing. And so let's look at the comparisons, because a lot of people like to make comparisons. For all my social justice warriors out there, our color patrol heroes, let's take a look at the numbers. Again, this is from the Washington Post. Hate it or love it, the facts don't care about your feelings. School shootings disproportionately affect black children. All right, so let's take a look at this. Among the Post's most important findings, the disproportionate impact of school shootings on children of color. Almost all the deadliest assaults were committed by white gunmen, a reality that has left much of the public with the false impression that school shootings almost exclusively affect white students. Children of color, however, are far more likely to experience campus gun violence. How much more? Check this out. More than twice as much for Hispanic students and over 3 times as much for black students. Here's the data set. At schools with majority black student bodies, shooters typically target a specific person, limiting the number of people shot and the subsequent media exposure. This is what I was just saying earlier. Listen, you can't make this up, you guys. Check this out. Black students make up 16.6% of the school population. All right, according to the Washington Post, 16.6% of the school population. That's important. Here we have whites, 56.7%. So this left bar here is going to be school population. All right, broken down by ethnicity. So 5.6 or 56 is very consistent, you could say, almost with the population size of white America. Hispanic 19, other 7. On the right side, but they experience school shootings at twice that rate. Twice the rate. On the right side, what's the percentage? 38% white. Blacks, 33%. Hispanic, 22.9, other, 6%. 16% of the student population account for 30% of school shootings, whereas white account for 38%, and they're almost 60% of the student population. The median age of a school shooter is 16 years old. You guys, I just I just went over a list of black shooters from schools, and they're all 15, 16 years old. The facts don't care about your feelings. We can play this comparison game all you want, but the reality is, would you rather have one mass shooting a year or 2 shootings every month at your school? There's no point in making a comparison. Neither one of them are good to have. That's the whole point, right? And so again, we're over here trying to compare tragedies, compare wicked behavior, compare just evil. And again, it's not the point. This is why I started this channel, to really combat a lot of these false narratives and these delusions that are being put and pushed throughout our community, and even throughout this country as a whole, right? In order to have real solid conversations that are evidence-based conversations, in hopes to redirect a lot of that misguided influence and false teachings that have been pushed through the media, our politicians, and even our own people within our community. Guys, listen, this was a tragedy like all the others. There's a lot of these things taking place. You saw the numbers. It's sad. There's so much work that needs to be done in this country, and it's going to always start from home. But our government and leadership plays also a very vital role in fixing this problem. And they need to start with putting out the truth, holding the media accountable for putting out so much propaganda and misinforming the public, right? So anyways, you guys, that's it. This video is already long. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I want to hear your thoughts. If you agree or disagree, you know this platform is free for you to speak. I don't censor anybody. YouTube does. All right. So love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. And if you want to debate the topic, please let me know. I don't have a problem at all. With that being said, you guys, let these truths find you where the lies have left you. Good night and God bless.